missed the joke.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Cokerhook. Today is the 11th of November. It's Veterans Day, and it is 3 days after the national elections. And today, I have three gentlemen as guests today who I've had the privilege of chatting with in the past, but they are representatives, they're all members of an organization called Braver Angels. I've got Carlos Hernandez, who is a Pacific region leader for Reds, Maxim Shrogan, who is the Northern California State Coordinator on the blue side, and Paul Norris, who's the Northern California State Coordinator on the Reds. And gentlemen, great to see you again. Thank you for coming back to Reference Point.
It's been a long journey.
It's been a long journey. So, you know, it has been a long journey. There's been a lot that's gone on since the last time we've talked. And I think a place I'd like to start, if we can, is for someone in the group, maybe all three of you, to kind of like remind us of what is the purpose of Braver Angels and how has that developed since its inception. Carlos, do you want to start?
Actually, I'll defer to Paul since he is the senior member of the trio here. With his experience, but not his age. Not his age.
And certainly not an intelligence. Really? I mean, senior, more senile. So, so it's been the same since the very beginning. Really, it's to depolarize America. Although I prefer the terminology, something more like turning down the heat. Moving towards civil conversation and civil politics, and if you want to extrapolate a little bit, to try to keep us all from killing each other over our disagreements.
Anybody want to add to that?
I do. I want to give a big shout out to what Maxime's doing in Berkeley. Think about it. Braver Angels has a flag planted in the very progressive city. And Maxime and his team have pulled off, through the pandemic, monthly meetings, and he's not short of Reds. In fact, I think he had more Reds than Blues in Berkeley.
Wow.
So yeah. So big shout out to Maxime and his teammates. He could talk about his teammates.
Well, this actually leads to a question, and Maxime, you may be a great one to start the conversation on this, and that is, how has the public at large been responding to the Braver Angels initiative for this type of more civil dialogue?
I'm totally the wrong person to answer that question, and I'll tell you why. I concentrate on what we call the Berkeley-Oakland Alliance. I put all my energy into doing what Braver Angels is trying to do nationally, which is bring conservatives and quote conservatives and quote liberal progressives together to talk civilly with each other. We work really hard on that, and I cannot report personally on what happens nationally, whether we're having more influence or less. Every once in a while I get a news flash about us, we Braver Angel people, having talked to Congress people. We're doing lots of different activities, but I'm afraid that both Carlos and Paul are probably more in tune with that. I'm really self-centered. I'm an entitled bubble Berkeley progressive, and I do my best to meet people who think differently from me, and that's plenty of work.
Well, let's that for just a moment, because your area is a good microcosm of what Braver Angels is intending to do. So it sounds like from what Carlos said that you are having success at getting people to engage in more of this type of discourse where you can sit down and you listen to other people's points of view, and you come to at least understand that they are people too type thing. So how have you been able to accomplish that?
And I really appreciate Carlos's support for 3 years. I have to just mention that because he's really been behind what our alliance is doing. So let me back up a little, and this is an extremely prejudiced, one-sided look at Braver Angels. We started in 2016. It was after Trump was elected. People like me, let's say in Berkeley, were horrified about his election and did not understand how anybody could even think about voting for the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But we were curious, so we wanted to find out from people who voted for him how they thought. But actually, and this is, again, totally editorial, people like me didn't really want to hear them for themselves. We wanted to hear what they had to say and let them know how we of superior intelligence and ethics knew more than they did, and convince them that they really made a mistake in voting for Trump. Well, very fortunately for me, I've got to say, I ran into people because of Zoom. In other words, I ran into people over the hills because anybody east of Berkeley is, obviously inferior and stupid and all that. I ran into people who were phenomenally interesting, intelligent, and thought differently than I did. They felt, from some of we Berkeley people, they felt heard by us. And previous encounters with liberals had made them feel excluded and looked down upon. For some reason, we were able to have them feel that we were actually curious about them. And we've all been meeting together for 3 years, planning our meetings across our lines, and actually being curious about each other's different viewpoints, accepting them without changing our own necessarily, even though I got to say mine, I've slid over towards the dark side a little. But it's been a phenomenal experience for me. And I think we've been successful with our alliance because we made conservatives feel accepted.
That's great.
And we're interested in them.
And about how many people are involved in the alliance?
Well, we have about 30 or 40 people on our mailing list. A typical meeting, a typical monthly meeting will have about 20 people.
That's fantastic. The ripple effect from that is got to be phenomenal. That's fantastic.
I'm hoping.
Paul, how does this look? Are there similar? You're involved with the organization for a longer period of time, and you're the Northern California State Coordinator. Are you seeing similar successes in other parts of the state?
Well, there are particular alliances that are successful. Yeah, I mean, they're doing a great job of setting an example of how people can talk to each other, and occasionally we'll get exposure, media exposure. Sometimes it's something that is actually watched by a lot of people. But again, the way that I think about what we're doing is we're setting an example. And sometimes if you do the right thing for long enough, other people will catch on when they realize that what's going on right now isn't working.
Right.
So that's my hope. That is my hope. My hope is something like catching the wave.
Right.
But I don't think that's happened yet. But again, setting a good example and knowing that you're doing the right thing counts for a lot.
For sure. Carlos, it sounded like you were about to make a comment.
Yes, the thing I want to point out is what Maxime has done very effectively. Their core team, CORE, they had a habit of meeting weekly and by Zoom, because Maxime's not stupid. His red chair lives in Iowa.
Oh, wow.
And he just told me last month, they have met weekly. They are meeting weekly. They have grown to love each other. And the experience here in San Francisco, when Paul was our chair, I had dinner with some of the folks last night. Really tight leaders that actually like each other.
Yeah.
We don't talk, and by the way, we don't talk much in terms of politics. Same is true in Los Angeles. We have 2 alliances there, Los Angeles and Orange County. And that's where I see our most success. the leaders of the alliances, yes, we're human. Yes, we have flaws, but we're really doing our best.
And even if you have different beliefs or different perspectives on things, that's just part of life, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not all
Yes.
going to agree that we like, Thai food with a spice level of 10 on the Thai scale. Not all of us are going to do that, right? Some of us are going to be, gringo-like, we're going to take it down there at an American spice level. But that doesn't mean that either one of those positions are wrong. So I think that what you guys are doing has been good. I'm curious. One of the things that I have observed or at least have concluded from some observation is that the social media environment has tended to perpetuate this split, the polarization stuff. And so has Braver Angels looked at how they can leverage social media in the opposite direction? Is there any initiative in that regard that you guys are aware of?
Maybe let me pipe up on this one. So we do have accounts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. But there's also an issue that really needs to be looked at, which is the anonymity and the distance and the impersonality of social media does not seem to be particularly conducive to what we're trying to do. In fact, it seems to be one of the main sources of problems. So we also have a workshop about how to do social media in a different kind of way. But social media, well, and I guess also I should mention, I mean, we have podcasts. I guess that counts as social media. But in general, social media is not the most conducive environment for us to do the kind of work that we want to do.
So what do you?
If anybody else wants to weigh in on that?
How do we counter the negative impact of social media? I guess the way to counter that is what Maxime is doing in Berkeley, where you get people face to face, or at least via Zoom, and communicating.
I'm going to go even further because I was going to tail on to what Paul said. I believe the internet is inherently divisive because people are anonymous. And so I'm finding, even through Zoom, that I'm having almost intimate conversations with the people with whom I'm discussing. Carlos used to be intelligent and liberal, and he changed. And in spite of that, we feel brotherly towards each other. We actually don't talk politics that much, but we understand where we come from.
Yeah.
We accept it, and we're friends. And so it seems to me that in spite of the fact that, for instance, I'm a mad, passionate gun lover, and I think every American should own a gun for the good of everybody. And you're afraid of guns and don't want any Americans to have any. We can talk over breakfast, listen to each other, and become friends.
Yes.
And without convincing each other of anything, it might make eventual negotiation possible.
Right.
Not necessarily, and that isn't what Braver Angels is about, as a matter of fact.
That's
David,
right.
I can offer perspective.
Go ahead.
A personal one. I attended, on the behalf of Braver Angels, as read, the famous libertarian conference in Las Vegas this past summer, called Freedom. I was also trusted with the passwords for our social channels. And I had a career of doing that kind of work at Nordstrom. So I was appreciative of being trusted. And I walked around taking lots of pictures of people speaking, posters. I wanted to capture the environment of Liberty Fest.
Right.
Check with 2 or 3 people beforehand, just to make sure I wasn't torquing somebody.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at some of the comments on Instagram, somebody's going to react somewhere, some way.
Absolutely.
No matter how well we tried. Now it becomes a teaching moment. How are we going to reply as braver angels to the comment posted on the social channel?
Right.
It's not easy. It's a lot easier now on a screen or over a phone.
Sure. Sure.
So that's just my personal experience.
It's interesting, the forces that are pushing people into these extreme positions. I mean, we look at what technology has brought us with, you know, the internet and social media and the things that you can do now. I mean, I look a lot of stuff up via Google if I want to learn something about something, but at the same time, there's so much diversity, and from a negative perspective that goes on, that it's hard to counteract. And I think what you guys are doing helps to put that into perspective, that, you know, you need to talk to other people and learn from them. Not necessarily, it doesn't mean you have to, like you said, I think, Maxime, you don't necessarily change your belief system. That's not what it's all about. What it's all about is understanding where another person is coming from, so that you can live together in harmony. So I have a question about a couple of the programs that I was reading about on the website. There's one called Braver Politics, one called We the People. There's a program called College Debate Program. I was wondering if you guys have any more data that you can talk to us about here in the show about these programs and how you're seeing them be implemented. And Paul,
you want space?
Why, programs in Braver Angels tend to be the focus of particular subgroups, and so I don't think any of us here are involved in We the People. That's led by a man named David Lapp, and it really brings together working class people. And, you know, I understand that they have their own events, they have their own speeches, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Braver Politics, which Carlos probably knows more about than any of the rest of us. And then you talked about the College Debate Program.
Yes.
And I am one of the associate directors on the debate program overall.
Oh, wow.
But we put on, usually 2 a month debates that anybody can sign up for. And I recommend that people look that up. And they are not traditional debates. They are searches for truth.
Mm-hmm.
So they're much kinder than what people think of when they think of it as a debate.
Right.
And I know that there is an active college debate program. I know who leads that, and, you know, I hear a fair amount about the number of events that they put on, but I'll be honest with you, you know, I mean, I can't tell you how many that is.
Right.
But I do understand it's quite a successful program.
That's wonderful. I think that's a great area to start helping the next generation start to understand how to communicate better about topics like this. Do you know, that any of you know, if that, one of the things that occurred to me is that, is it possible to take that kind of a program, and I know that there may not even be a program right yet, but to take that college program and move it down a level, and it's at the high school level, because there's a lot of tension and whatnot that goes on at the high school level. And these are the kids who are going to start voting in another couple of years. And so have you heard any discussion about something like that?
So there's definitely been discussion, and it's something that people are thinking about. My guess is that what one would have to do, though, to get that into the high schools would be a completely separate and different process.
I would think, yeah.
From the way that one launches the college program.
Certainly, yeah.
People you work with would be different. I suspect the politics would be very different. So great idea, and maybe it's something, you know, that could be put into a package, you know, that could be handed off. But yeah, you know, I don't see that as something. I don't know how we could do that in the near future. That would also be really, I think, labor intensive.
I would agree
Require
with
a
you
lot of
completely.
resources.
Yeah, but at least okay,
Well,
cool.
there are, I dare say that there are other organizations that are doing comparable work in different areas.
Oh, okay.
And I don't have to go into that more, but for instance, the Rotary Club, International Club, has one of its emphases on peace, period.
Right.
And a good way to attain peace is to talk to the enemy.
Right.
And so Rotary clubs are actually having programs going within Rotary clubs. Actually, the Berkeley Rotary Club is doing a civil discourse session monthly. We're going to other Rotary clubs, but we're also having a program for youth to discover means of peace and means of talking with each other. And I'm sure there are other organizations that are doing comparable work.
Good. Carlos, I want to come to you on, because Paul mentioned your name, that you might be have a little bit more insight in the braver politics. I want to talk about that a little bit, and then we've got about 6 or 7 minutes left in the show, and I've got a couple things I want you guys to comment on. But what can you tell us about braver politics?
The essential thing to appreciate about braver politics is to display our values, our culture, the way we speak to each other with political candidates and politicians. Dr. Doherty, the father of our workshops, spoke before U.S. Congress in one of the committees.
Mm-hmm.
And an alliance has the ability to reach out to local politicians or state or federal, try to entice them to learn how we do what we do. In the recent midterm, I believe a few candidates across the country did it in the Braver Angels way. I can't remember their names and where they're located. So that's a culture change.
Yes.
Now, going back to your student thing, while we may not be focusing on high school students for debates, we have done workshops for high school students. It started in California. Why? One of our trained moderators is a school teacher.
There you go.
And now, just last week, I had a conversation with a high school teacher who's also a film scriptwriter who wants to make a short film.
Oh, fantastic.
Contact the Braver Angels. Why? He wants Reds to read his script to make sure his script isn't off base.
Right.
I talked to him. I think Maxime may have talked to him this morning. That is going to be the effort, where folks make an effort at a local level, like a teacher.
Yeah.
To communicate in, for lack of a better word, the Braver Angels way.
We've got about 5 minutes left in the show. So what I'd like us to talk about now is, how do we get more people involved in the Braver Angels process, to participate, to maybe, I don't know if you have to, become a member or register or whatever. What do we do? How do we get more people into this activity, into this mindset? Paul, what are your thoughts?
Well, there is, in fact, a major research project going on right now attempting to answer this question. And it's interesting. They're using the Pew survey of political orientation to identify where we have people and where we're not drawing people from. Mm-hmm. We've been wrestling with this since the very beginning, and still trying to figure it out is the simple truth. Still trying to figure it out.
So what do we tell people here in Northern California, since that's where we all are? What activities, initiatives, the people who are watching this show, what should they do?
Reach out to Braver Angels and just look up braverangels.org is the easy way to do it. Let us know that you exist so that you get on our mailing list. Mm-hmm. We'll help you to find an alliance, and you'll become aware of a whole host of workshops that you can take, and many of which are given online at the national level. So anybody who has basic internet access has access to Braver Angels workshops.
Cool. Carlos,
Add
what are your
something here.
thoughts?
We do not dodge dicey topics.
I've noticed.
Maxime specialize in coming up with subjects, questions that draw attention. Here in San Francisco, after January 6th, we had a 2-hour session on the events of January 6th. Last, we did a topic, trustworthy elections in California. I know Paul's work with the debate team. We struggle sometimes coming up with the question, but we're not scared of the topic.
That's great.
As unpopular as a topic might be to one leaning or the other.
That's important. I think that's, you gotta put these things on the table. Maxime, what are your thoughts? I think we've got about 2.5 minutes left.
Well, I can talk for about 10 seconds. What the two gentlemen have said is the way to enter into this world. All I do is tell people how much it's expanded my life, how much it's changed me and made me a more open person. Now, not everybody is curious to talk with people that disagree with them. So not everybody is going to be interested in this kind of work.
Right.
But so all I can do is be very personal about it because it's been so meaningful to me. The people that I associated with, because of Braver Angels, would say the same thing. When my liberal progressive friends say, "Oh, Maxime, you're doing wonderful work. Can I do it with you?" I say, "Great. Bring someone who thinks the opposite with you to the meeting." That's the qualification you need to meet. We don't need another Berkeley progressive. We have enough of those. We're boring.
Got it. Well, all right. Well, from the last time that we had the four of us had a chance to talk, I am stimulated by what you're telling me. It gives me optimism, okay? Because the fact that not just the fact that there is an organization out there, but the fact that the three of you continue to work diligently to achieve the objective of bridging the divide, I think is phenomenal, and I really appreciate and respect that. So with that, I think we're pretty much done with the show. I want to thank you gentlemen again for being here. Paul,
Carlos, Maxime.
Maxime, I think they're bringing up the pictures when I say the names. So
yeah.
I really appreciate that you came again to do this. We'll have to do it. I'm interested in how things are going to progress. We may do this again in another year as we get closer to the next election season. That might be kind of an interesting time to talk about what's going on with Braver Angels. But I guess that pretty much covers it on my side. Gentlemen, thank you for being there.
I want to thank you for your appreciation and the work you're doing.
Well, I hopefully it gets a little bit of the information out there, and we can stimulate some thought and getting some people to join. All right, so I got to let you go now, guys. Thank you very much, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Reference Point.
Thank you.